For several years, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood was the highest rated anime of all time. No matter what new anime was released, no one could knock off FMA of its throne. And this remained true for so long time that it almost seemed like a law of nature. But then came the winter season of 2023, and suddenly everything looked different. The first season of Frieren, Beyond Journey's End, was released and took the top spot. To this day, Frieren is the highest rated anime ever. So the question is, how did this happen? And was the success perhaps even calculated? After Frieren's group of adventurers defeats the Demon King, peace finally returns. The four are celebrated as heroes, their journey considered complete. But in many classic fantasy stories, no one is usually interested in what comes next. When the group reunites 50 years later, Frieren suddenly realizes how much everything has changed. Her former companions have grown old. She, on the other hand, hardly at all. As an elf who has already lived for over 1000 years, time is something completely different for her. When Himmel, the group's leader, finally dies, Frieren regrets never having truly gotten to know him. And this is exactly where Frieren begins. The anime possesses an extremely unconventional question. What do you do after you've achieved your goal? Frieren picks up where most anime leave off. It's not about the big final battle, but about what comes after. About memory, loss, and time. Frieren travels the world once again. To collect new spells, of course, but above all to understand people better. And to find out what this 10-year journey really meant for her companions. She then meets the orphan Fern. Fern was previously under the care of Heiter, a former companion of Frieren. After his death, Frieren takes Fern in and teaches her magic. Later, the duo meets Stark, a fearful warrior who joins the group. From now on, they travel as a trio. But of course, that's just the beginning of everything. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. I've noticed that most of you don't follow me yet, and it only takes one click. Frieren is an incredibly interesting character. At first glance, she seems distant, almost cold. But there's a very clear reason for this, her relationship with time. The journey to defeat the Demon King took about 10 years. Himmel died at the age of 76. For him, this adventure took up more than an eighth of his entire life. It was the central part of his existence. For Frieren, on the other hand, these 10 years would be comparable to over 130 years of a human life. And it is precisely this disparity that becomes apparent time and again. This is particularly evident in the scene where Himmel and Frieren talk about their statues. For Frieren, they make little sense. For her, the journey was only a short period and her death is a long way off. For Himmel, it's different. This adventure is his greatest success, something that will remain when he himself is no longer there. The statues are his way of living on. As a viewer, Himmel's perspective is probably more understandable. Frieren seems almost naive here despite her intelligence. It's as if a 10-year-old child were talking to an 80-year-old man about transience. And this is precisely where the strength of the series lies. Frieren embodies the dream of a longer life, perhaps even immortality, and at the same time shows what it costs. The anime asks questions that literally affect everyone. How do I use my time? What will remain of me? And what is the meaning of a life that seems endless? No matter how different we all are, the anime addresses the very issues that we all think about sooner or later. The message is clear to everyone, but of course one can delve much deeper into the subject matter. On the surface, Frieren is a slice-of-life anime. It shows a section of its characters' lives without a classic goal structure. The focus is on the characters, not on the plot. But Frieren immediately breaks with this genre because the period of time shown is longer than an entire human life. Added to this are elements of fantasy, action, mystery, and even romance. The fantasy genre in particular gets a breath of fresh air here. Instead of staging epic battles, Frieren is interested in their consequences. The story does not focus on victory, but on what remains afterwards. And even if there aren't that many action scenes at the beginning, there are more and more as the time goes on. In addition, the group provides a lot of variety with their different fighting styles. While Stark tends to engage in close combat with his axe, Fern keeps her distance with her magic. But it's not just the anime that plays with different genres. Frieren herself as a character is incredibly versatile. As a child, she's the tragic elf fighting for survival. Flamme then took her in as a student. During the original journey, she's the powerful but cold magician who just wants to do her job. And now she's the teacher who tries to get to know people better and truly understand them. But how exactly did this massive success come about? Of course, we also have to talk about the anime adaptation itself. It was produced by Madhouse, a studio known for works such as Hunter x Hunter, Monster, Hajime no Ippo, Death Note, Nana, Perfect Blue, so a lot of trust from the start. What is particularly striking is the enormous fidelity to the original work. Madhouse rarely deviates from the manga, and that is precisely a huge factor in its success. Manga readers often form the core of the fanbase, and as soon as an adaptation deviates too much, it is quickly torn apart. even if it is of high quality. The animation also plays a big role, of course. And even though Frieren doesn't have epic Demon Slayer battles with crazy animation, the Frieren animation is still unbelievably good. I think the fact that Frieren's animation style doesn't deviate too much from the norm makes the anime accessible to many. Anime with special art styles such as Beastars, Ping Pong or Ranking of Kings are naturally more off-putting. And then there's the music, and that really shouldn't be underestimated in the context of anime. When you start listening to the OSTs privately, a whole different emotional connection develops. And Frieren exploits this perfectly. We can thank Taguchi Shuichiro for this anime. After reading the first chapter of Frieren, he was determined to adapt the manga into an anime. Fukushi Yuichiro, another producer, helped him with this. The two know each other because they worked together on One Punch Man. They then decided to hire Keiichiro Saido as a director. He is best known for Butchie the Rock, and he should not be underestimated. He has an extremely good reputation in the industry. There are so many animators who joined the project just because of him. One thing we haven't talked about yet, but which is incredibly important. This is something that I think many people underestimate. Character designs always give you your first impression. If I see a picture from an anime and the characters in that picture don't appeal to me at all, I'll probably skip the anime. But it's totally different with interesting character designs. For example, I only started watching Bleach because I loved Urahara's design so much. Of course, this is always subjective and not everyone will like Frieren's character design. But Frieren's character design is absolutely brilliant. At first glance, it may seem basic. She has a staff because she is a sorceress, she has long pointed ears because she's an elf, but what is special about Frieren is her eyes and her expression. Her eyes are more yellowish at the bottom, then transition to a green, then blue, and at the very top her eyes are highlighted with a purple tone. Eyes are incredibly important in character design. Anime such as Ushinoko focus heavily on this. This subconsciously makes it clear that Frieren is the main protagonist. Her facial expression is also very interesting. In almost no picture does Frieren show any emotion. Her expression is particularly striking when she is with her group. While Himmel smiles and is happy, Frieren shows no emotion and seems rather cold. Her character design is simple, which is why you can recognize Frieren just by her silhouette. But it is also unique enough that you can tell that she is the main character of the anime. Another thing worth mentioning are the special names. These are German and very often describe the character. Frieren means something like "it feels cold" or "you're freezing" in German. This fits the character perfectly as Frieren was rather cold and a distant person, especially at the beginning. Stark means strong, Himmel means sky, Haida means cheerful, and so on. Unfortunately, these names sometimes also give away spoilers. For example, the character Lügner translates to liar in German. Despite this, these names spark interest internationally simply because they sound so unique. It was probably clear from the beginning how strong the final anime adaptation of Frieren was. Frieren premiered on the Japanese TV channel Kinyo Roadshow, and that's actually not very common. Usually, only feature-length anime make their debut there, so episodes 1 to 4 of Frieren were cut together to be able to run on this program. This makes Frieren the first anime series to premiere on this TV channel at that time, and it is probably these 4 episodes that have made Frieren so successful. Many fans were immersed in the world from the very beginning. This is mainly due to the narrative style, but also to how the anime was able to convey the feeling of the manga almost perfectly. But even the manga version of Frieren was extremely popular. The manga has already won the Osamu Tezuka New Creator Award and the Manga Taisho Grand Prize. That may not sound like much at first, but believe me, back then Frieren destroyed everything at the Manga Taisho. Frieren was in first place with 91 points. The second place winner, Orb, had only 67 points. There has never been such a huge gap between first and second place. The manga Kaiju No. 8, Ushinoko and Spy Family were also nominated at this event. After the massive success of the first season, it was clear that Frieren would get another season. Season 2 will be released on Crunchyroll in January. Of course, we can only speculate at this point about how good the second season will be, but considering the hype on the internet and the positive feedback on the trailers, we can probably assume that the season 2 will also be very good. According to leaks, however, the season will only have 10 episodes instead of 28 like the first season. That would also explain why the start of the second season is so late. Many new anime series start at the beginning of the year. I could also imagine that the team doesn't have much time right now, as Madhouse is currently working on the movie Ghost, which is scheduled to be released next year. But what do you think of Frieren? Feel free to write your opinion in the comments. Please subscribe to the channel and write Fern in the comments if you have watched the video up to this point. See you next time.